welcome back. Not that you had anywhere to go because you have to move through these courses, but it makes me feel better. It feels like you're coming back to hang out with me. But so where I left you guys, we were talking about all this. We finished up on, 3R. And what we all talked about in that was we looked at the origins of government, we looked at the origins of a state, we looked at the essential features of a state, we looked at the classifications of government, right? We looked at those three standards. Who has the power, where is the power, and what is the relationship between L branch and E branch location, or L branch and E branch. We looked at the types of government. We looked at the influences of government, and we kind of just set the basics, the ground rules for what government is and why we're even here. We're going to move on, and we're going to start looking at our story, okay? We're going to start looking at how we got from being part of England to now being our own country, our own state, if you will. State meaning the whole United States, not just South Carolina. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the events that are leading up to the Declaration of Independence because that's our end goal, right? We want to be independent, right? Independent women, men, whoever you are, want to be independent, right? All of these events are key things that happened to get us to break up with Britain. Okay, if you've ever been in a relationship, it doesn't have to be a romantic one. You can have friend breakups. It happens probably more often than what you think. There's reasons for that, right? You didn't just wake up and you're just like, nope, not doing this anymore. There's something built up with that, okay? There's a story behind how you got here, and we're going to talk about that. So, if you can't read this timeline, I know it's really hard to see. There are, again, resources up in Google Classroom. It's going to be under a folder called Unit 1 Resources, and that's where all those graphics are going to be that you saw yesterday, the timelines, stuff like that, and you're able to look at those, print them out, zoom in, save, take a picture of, whatever. But the important thing for this module is the information, what all of this means, right? So this is just more for visual, so maybe if you want to pause this and pull that up and do like a little side-by-side screen so that way you can see what's going on, that's fine too. But we're also going to talk about it all right here. The only thing that's not in these word group, I guess, is the Boston Tea Party. The Boston Tea Party happens in between the Townshend Acts and the Intolerable Acts. It's right in here. So if you want to make a note, a little like asterisk and say like, hey, Boston Tea Party happened, totally fine. But that's a pretty self-explanatory event, so skipping right over that. All right, first we have the Mayflower Compact. The Mayflower Compact is our first attempt at a government. We are on the ship and we're like, hey, how are we gonna do this? And they create this set of rules and it works out for a while. It's kind of iffy. Everybody kind of has their own little takings on things and they have their own little local governments and stuff like that. But this was our very first attempt at a government. Now, that was in 1620. Then we get up to 1753. And again, I don't think I said this before, but you don't have to remember these dates. I want to know that you know the order of things that happened because that's why they happened that way, right? It's kind of like making a cake. Like you can't put it in the oven before putting the eggs in. That won't work. That's not, you know what I mean? So the dates I'm not super hard-nosed about. It's the events, where they happened in the story, and what are they. So French Indian War happens. It's a 7-year war, and it's expansive. Right now, I'm not talking about Americans. Americans don't exist yet. We are British. The British colonists are fighting against France and the Indians, okay? We win. Yay! So we call it the French and Indian War because we are egotistical and we want everyone to know who fought in that war and kind of like make fun of the fact that they lost. It's like, oh, everybody's going to know that you fought this war and that you lost because we're going to call it the French and Indian War. Losers. Okay? So that's an expensive war, and it's fought on our soil, on the colonist soil. King George comes to power about 3.5, 4 years before the war ends. King George III, KG3, is what I'll probably refer to him as lovingly, KG3, or Mad King George. He comes to power, and he kind of sucks. He is kind of a pushover, and he is a big baby, and he just kind of complains until he gets what he wants. But he also is a monarch, so he is a figurehead. He doesn't have a whole lot of power because they still have a parliament, and parliament is who's acting these laws out. He's just kind of the face of it all. So he complains and he cries and he's a big baby about a lot of stuff. But he also kind of sucks. So we move through. Oh, shoot. Sorry, I forgot to put that up there. Okay. The Stamp Act. All right. So we're fighting this war, right? And like I said, it's expensive. It's long. We got to pay for it. Because we have to pay for uniforms, we have to pay for the food supply, we have to reconstruct everything. All that stuff. How are we going to pay for it? So King George decides, I'll put in a tax. Makes a lot of sense. We have taxes now, right, that help pay for stuff. So I'm just going to put in a tax. I'm going to tax stamps on newspapers, legal documents, and commercial documents for all of the colonists. Kind of messed up, right? He's not going to tax people in Britain. He's only going to tax the colonists. And the thought process behind that was, well, it's not our soil, it's not our stuff. So you guys have to pay for it. And then people aren't getting mad at him directly. It's the colonists. And they're kind of out of sight, out of mind, whatever. So you might not think that the Stamp Act was a big deal because you guys probably haven't bought stamps probably ever. If you have, it's probably only been a couple times. Stamps in the 1700s would be like if you had to pay somebody or like your phone bill went up every time somebody texted you or Snapchatted you or Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, I don't know all the stuff that you guys use now, TikTok, anything like that, emailed you. You guys get emails, and especially if you are looking to do stuff in college or go to the military, you're probably getting a lot of emails. Anytime that something pops up on your phone, you pay for it. Anytime that you have to get information out, you pay for it, okay? So that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And you're like, okay, stop, okay? So because it's so expensive and people are tired of paying money for something that's necessary, they found a way around it, right? They decided to just walk to people or to do things underground and use different ways of communication. So from that, King George kind of figured out, hey, we're not making that much money. We're supposed to be making like a crap ton, and we've made like zero. So what he does is he comes up with, the Townshend Acts. Townshend Acts, that is, we're right here in the middle in 1767. What that is it starts to tax everything. Literally everything. Glass, lead, paper, paint, tea. Now, this is where the Boston Tea Party comes in, right? He starts to tax so many things. One is punishment, as like, I'll show you if you think you can outsmart me. And two, because now they're back ordered, right? Britain is losing money now for a war that they won, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And so King George is trying to figure out, okay, I got bills to pay, right? Like, I have to figure this stuff out. So we're going to tax the crap out of these colonists because I need money. Colonists are like, that's some bullcrap because hello, you don't see us? Like, you're going to run us into the ground. We don't have any money because you keep taking it for a war that we fought for you, and all you want us to do is pay for it? Are they paying for it? No, and you didn't even ask us. Not cool, man. Not cool. So, in protest, we decided to do the Boston Tea Party. And now, I know what you're thinking. Boston Tea Party. People overreacted. This party, this protest was a banger. It was a huge. What we decided to do is we are going to go to the harbor. We're going to dress up like Indians, Native American Indians. We're going to dress up like Native Americans, and we are going to dump all of the tea into the harbor. You guys, it was so much tea. Like one of these little bricks, because it's loose leaf. It's not like Lipton where you pull out the little tea bag and dunk and you got tea. No, it's a brick. It's like this big, about that wide, this tall, that wide, of like herbs and leaves and so on. And one of those bricks is good for a family of 4 for like a couple months. But it was so much to you guys that the harbor couldn't even function for months afterwards. We couldn't even put boats in there. And so we decide we're gonna dump out all the tea because if we didn't buy it, we don't know. We didn't pay for it. There's no import. Where did it go? We didn't even get to use it. It's in the harbor. So we throw it in the harbor and we have a party. And when I say a party, like I said earlier, it was a banger. People were drunk, dancing. People brought like their instruments, and musicians came out and they started playing music. And all the British soldiers could do was just stand there and watch us have a party. They couldn't do anything. They weren't allowed. It was pretty sweet. But then King George got kind of mad. So he said, okay, that was intolerable. Sorry. That was intolerable, meaning I will not tolerate it. And now I'm going to tax even more crap. I'm going to make sure that I'm now going to tax sugar. I'm going to tax ink. I'm going to tax everything else that I didn't tax before. I'm going to tax it now. And also, if you do anything wrong, you're going to be arrested and brought to trial in front of me, and you could die. And what did you do? I don't know. I'll figure it out when you get here. It happened all the time. And it was King George's way of like, getting his authority back for all of these different things that he he wasn't passing the legislation. It was his idea, and Parliament was like, don't worry, KG3, we're gonna take care of this. But again, KG3 is the head of it all, so it kind of all falls back on him. So what we do is we have the First Continental Congress, which is when our founders get together, our colonists get together, and they're like, WTF is KG3 doing right now? I'm upset. I don't even know. I'm livid and I hate this and it's awful. So what they do is they write up a treaty, and it's called the Olive Branch Treaty. And they write it up, and it's essentially like, Georgie, my man, really sorry about what we did. Yeah, that wasn't cool, but what you did also wasn't that cool. So truce, call it even. Love you, mean it. Bye. Send it over. And it's just an apology letter, but it's also kind of like, hey, hear us out. Like, this is what we were doing, and this is how we felt, and you weren't helpful. So can we call it even and try to figure this out? And King George says, no, nah, dog. Randy Jackson's it. And he says, it's a no from me, dog. No, you broke the rules and you were being a bunch of jerks and you undermined my authority and you cost me even more money that I was trying to raise back up because you got rid of all this product. They petition King George and say like, hey, help, we're really sorry, feel bad. King George comes back and says like, nope, sorry, you suck and I'm not dealing with that. So, during the Second Continental Congress, after King George has shot down the treaty, they meet again. The Congress comes back together. This is First Continental Congress was in October of 1774, and then the second was, Continental Congress was in May. So, we're a couple months later. What is that? 7 months later, 6 months later? And we are mad because things aren't changing. And we get together. King George has shot down our treaty. He's shot down our petition. He's not having us. We say, okay, we're going to do one more thing. We're going to reach out one more time. And if he says no, that's it. We're done. One last hurrah, and we're done. George Washington, you're going to be our commander-in-chief. If we're going to war. We're going to fight for our independence because we are over this guy. Spoiler alert, we break up with Britain. King George shoots down our truce again, and so we write the world's best breakup letter. We essentially write this whole thing and say, you know what, George, it's not us, it's you, and yeah, we're kind of over it, and here's why you suck, why we're leaving you, in 27 details. 27 specific things that you have done to make us leave you. Could you imagine dating somebody and like you're with them and you're, like things are kind of rocky and like all this stuff has happened and then all of a sudden you get a letter or probably a text message and it says, it's not me, it's you, and here's a list of reasons why. So obviously he was not very happy about that, but we go to war. And spoiler alert, we are independent. Okay? I think that's the end of this video module. The next one is when we'll talk about the Articles of Confederation. So, I'll see you then.